On February 9th, 2004, a 21-year-old nursing student named Maura Murray drove north out of Amherst, Massachusetts, alone in a snowstorm. She told no one where she was going. She fabricated a family death to explain her absence. She had cash, alcohol, and a packed car. About 2.5 hours later, she crashed on a dark hairpin turn in the mountains of New Hampshire. A neighbor stopped. A school bus driver stopped. She told him she was fine. She told him she'd already called for help. She asked him, pleaded with him, not to call police. He drove home. He called anyway. 19 minutes later, officers arrived at the crash scene. Maura Murray was gone. Not a single confirmed trace of her has been found in 22 years. What happened in those 19 minutes and in the days, months, and years before is one of the most haunting, unsolved disappearances in American history. This is the story of Maura Murray. Chapter 1. Who was Maura Murray? To understand what happened on Route 112 that February night, you have to understand who Maura was, because she was not a blank slate. She was a real, complicated, deeply human young woman living through a stretch of extraordinary stress. Maura Murray was born on May 4th, 1982 in Brockton, Massachusetts, a working-class city south of Boston. She was the fourth of 5 children born to Frederick and Laurie Murray, raised in an Irish Catholic household. Her parents divorced when she was 6, and Maura lived primarily with her mother. By every account, Maura was electric. She was the jokester of the family. Warm, funny, sharp, someone who sent handwritten thank you cards and remembered everyone's birthdays. She was beautiful with distinctive dimples that people remembered long after meeting her. At Whitman-Hanson Regional High School in Hanson, Massachusetts, she was a standout athlete, a distance runner, gifted enough that she was recruited and accepted into West Point, the United States Military Academy, where she studied chemical engineering. Think about what it takes to get into West Point. This was not a lost girl. This was a high achiever. But West Point wasn't a fit. After 3 semesters, Maura transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst to study nursing. And here's where things get complicated, because by the time she was a junior at UMass in early 2004, the shine was wearing off. In November 2003, 3 months before she disappeared, Maura was charged with using a stolen credit card to order food from local restaurants. The charge was continued, meaning it would be dismissed automatically after 3 months of good behavior. That 3-month window expired right around the time she vanished. Was it hanging over her? Was she ashamed? We don't know for certain, but it matters. She was also in a long-distance relationship with a man named Bill Roush, a West Point graduate deployed to the military. The relationship showed signs of strain. When campus police later searched her dorm room, they found most of her belongings packed in boxers, art stripped from the walls, and on top of those boxers, a printed email, the contents of which suggested trouble between them. None of this, on its own, explains anything, but together, these threads paint a picture of someone at a breaking point, someone who maybe was running from something. The question is, was she running from a life, or did something far darker find her on that road? Chapter 2. The week before Maura disappeared was, by any measure, a terrible one. Thursday night, February 5th. Maura is at her campus security job at She gets a phone call from her older sister, Kathleen. Now, we didn't know the full content of this call until 2017, when Kathleen finally spoke publicly about it. Kathleen was an alcoholic. She'd been in a rehabilitation clinic. That very evening, she was discharged, and on the way home, her fiancé took her to a liquor store. Maura took this phone call sitting at her security desk. and whatever Kathleen told her shattered her. Around 10:30 that night, while still on duty, Maura broke down sobbing. Her supervisor found her completely unresponsive. Quote, "Just zoned out, no reaction at all." He walked her back to a dorm room at 1:20 in the morning. He asked her what was wrong. She said 2 words, "My sister." She loved her family fiercely, and her family was falling apart in real time. Then, Saturday, February 7th, her father Fred drives up to visit. This is significant. Fred Murray was a devoted father, deeply involved in his children's lives. They went car shopping together that afternoon. Maura's Saturn wasn't running well. They were looking at replacements. Then dinner with one of Maura's friends. Later that night, Maura borrowed Fred's Toyota Corolla to go back to a dorm party on campus. She arrived at 10:30 p.m. At 3:30 in the morning, on her way back to her father's motel, Maura struck a guardrail on Route 9 in Hadley. $10,000 in damage. Both she and the responding officer later gave accounts of the crash. Notably, there is no documentation of a field sobriety test being administered. This detail has long raised eyebrows. She was brought to her father's motel. They stayed there the rest of the night. And then, here is a detail that has never been explained. At 4:49 in the morning, a call was placed from Fred's cell phone to Maura's boyfriend, Bill Rausch. We do not know who made the call. We do not know what was said. It was never fully accounted for. The next morning, Fred learned his insurance would cover the damage. He rented a car, dropped Maura back at UMass, and drove home to Connecticut. That night, Sunday night, he called her to remind her to pick up accident report forms from the Registry of Motor Vehicles. They talked. They made a plan to fill out the insurance paperwork together on Monday night. That was the last time Fred Murray spoke to his daughter. Chapter 3. The last eve, just after midnight, Maura sat at her personal computer and searched MapQuest for 2 destinations: the Berkshires in western Massachusetts and Burlington, Vermont. She printed the directions. She also looked up something else. We'll come back to this. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, she emailed her boyfriend. "I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking to anyone. I promised to call today, though." At 1:13 p.m., she called the Bartlett, New Hampshire Condo Association, a resort area where her family had vacationed before. She asked about renting a condo. The owner said no. The call lasted 3 minutes. Then she called a fellow nursing student, purpose unknown. At 1:24 p.m., she sent an email to her work supervisor in the nursing department. She said there had been a death in the family and she needed a week off. She would contact them when she returned. According to every member of her family, no death had occurred. She fabricated it. She sent a similar email to her professors and tellingly submitted all her outstanding homework early. She was tying up loose ends. At 2:05 p.m., she called a recorded information line for hotel availability in Stowe, Vermont. A 5-minute call. At 2:18 p.m., she left a voicemail for Bill Rausch, promising to call him later. She never did. Then she got to work. She packed her black 1996 Saturn sedan, clothing, toiletries, college textbooks, birth control pills. She withdrew $280 from an ATM at 3:40 p.m. The last video surveillance footage we have of Maura Murray alive. She is alone. She is wearing a dark jacket and jeans. She walked into a nearby liquor store and spent about $40, Bailey's Irish Cream, Kahlua vodka, a box of Franzia wine. Surveillance footage, again. She is alone. No one is with her. She also, at some point, picked up those blank accident report forms her father had asked about. Between 4 o'clock 5 p.m., she drove off the UMass campus, north on Interstate 91, into the snow, into the mountains. At 4:37 p.m., she checked her voicemail. That was the last recorded use of her cell phone. She told no one where she was going. As far as we know, she had no confirmed destination, no hotel reservation, no meeting arranged. She simply drove north into a snowstorm, alone, and disappeared. Chapter 4. The crash route 112 in New Hampshire is rural mountain road. It cuts through Haverhill, a stretch of small villages and dense forest near the White Mountains. In early February, after dark, in the aftermath of a snowstorm, it is a treacherous road. There is a particular section, a sharp hairpin turn just outside the village of Woodsville, where Route 112 bends hard. Local drivers know it well. Visitors don't. Sometime after 7 p.m., a local woman heard a loud thump outside her home. She looked out her window. There was a car against the snowbank on that sharp corner. Maura's black Saturn pointing west on the eastbound side of the road. She called Grafton County Sheriff's Department at 7:27 p.m. Now, here's the first strange detail. The 911 log from that call records the woman saying she saw a man smoking a cigarette inside the car. A man, not Maura, not a young woman alone. A man. The woman later denied ever saying this, claiming she actually saw a reddish glow inside the car, possibly from a cell phone. Whether that was a transcription error, a memory lapse, or something else entirely, no one knows. A few minutes later, Butch Atwood came driving down Route 112. Atwood was a local school bus driver who lived nearby. He saw the crashed car and pulled over. He saw a young woman standing outside the vehicle. She was cold, shivering, but not visibly injured, not bleeding. He offered to call for help. She told him not to call the police. She said she had already called AAA. AAA has no record of any call from Maura Murray that night. Knowing there was no cell service in the area, Atwood drove the short distance home and called 911 himself. His call was logged at 7:43 p.m. While Atwood was on the phone, he noticed several cars passing the crash site. Who was in them? We don't know. Did any of them stop? We don't know. A third local resident, a woman driving home from work, has said she passed the scene around 7:37 p.m. before police officially arrived and saw something deeply troubling. A police-style SUV parked nose-to-nose with Maura's Saturn. No one visible inside or outside either vehicle. She pulled over briefly, then continued home. This account directly contradicts the official police log, which has the first officer arriving at 7:46 p.m. 9 minutes later, the discrepancy has never been resolved. At 7:46 p.m., a Haverhill police officer arrived on scene. Maura Murray was gone. The car told the story of a serious impact. The left headlight was destroyed. The radiator had been pushed into the fan. The car was completely inoperable. The windshield was cracked on the driver's side. Both airbags had deployed. The car was locked. Inside, red stains consistent with wine on the car and in the snow outside. An empty beer bottle, a damaged box of Francia on the rear seat, her AAA card, the blank accident forms, gloves, CDs, makeup, diamond jewelry, directions to Burlington, Vermont, her favorite stuffed animal, and a book, Not Without Peril, about mountain climbing in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, the very mountains she was driving through. Missing her debit card, credit cards, and cell phone. Never used again. Never found. And then there was the rag. from Maura's emergency roadside kit stuffed into the car's muffler pipe. Why? To signal distress, to prevent the car from running. By Maura or by someone else. 22 years later, no one has answered that question. Chapter 5. The search. The response to Maura's disappearance was, to put it charitably, slow. Alarmingly slow. Police didn't declare her officially missing until noon the next day, February 10th, nearly 24 hours after the last confirmed sighting. The formal "Be on the lookout" alert wasn't issued until 12:36 p.m. on February 10th. Why the delay? Investigators initially treated Maura as a voluntary missing person, someone who wanted to disappear. The packed car, the fake death in the family email, the ATM withdrawal, all of it pointed, in their view, to someone who had planned to vanish. The problem is, she left behind diamond jewelry, her stuffed animal, her personal belongings. She never touched her bank accounts again. She never used her phone. No confirmed sighting in 22 years. Not a single one. People who voluntarily disappear, unless they're extremely disciplined or have significant resources, usually surface eventually. Maura has not. Searches of the surrounding woods and mountains found nothing. No footprints, no clothing, no signs of life or death. The terrain is rugged, dense forest, mountain ridges, freezing temperatures. But over years and years of searches, including organized efforts by law enforcement, trained volunteers, and her family, nothing connected to Maura has ever been found near that crash site. Except for one thing Fred Murray has spoken about. He says that during one search, cadaver dogs responded to a nearby property, a house along Route 112 near the crash site. He believes in his gut that it was significant. The house was searched. Nothing conclusive was found, but he has never let go of it. There was also a possible sighting that didn't surface until months later. A contractor driving home from Franconia, New Hampshire, recalled seeing a young person moving quickly on foot eastbound on Route 112, about 4 to 5 miles east of the crash site, between 8 o'clock and 8:30 p.m. that night. The person was wearing jeans, a dark coat, and a light-colored hood. He didn't report it for 3 months because, when reviewing his work records, he only then realized the date matched the night Maura disappeared. Was it her moving east, on foot, away from the crash? Or was it someone else entirely? We'll never know for certain. In 2009, the case was moved to New Hampshire's Cold Case Unit and officially reclassified as a suspicious missing persons case. The word suspicious was meaningful. It acknowledged that something more than a voluntary disappearance may have occurred. Maura was also added to the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program. Chapter 6. The theories. 22 years of amateur investigation, professional analysis, true crime podcasts, documentary series, and obsessive internet research have produced no definitive answer. But they've produced several compelling theories, and it's worth walking through each one honestly. Theory 1. Abduction. On February 9, 2004, a 21-year-old nursing student named Maura Murray crashed her car on a dark, snowy road in rural New Hampshire. When police arrived just minutes later, the car was there, locked, but Maura was gone. What happened to her remains one of the most baffling and discussed missing person cases of the digital age. Before she vanished, Maura's life was seemingly unraveling. She had crashed her father's car, faced a charge for a credit card fraud, and sent strange emails to her professors and boss mentioning a family emergency that didn't exist. She packed a car with belongings, including textbooks and birth control, withdrew $280 from an ATM, and bought about $40 worth of alcohol. Then she started driving north, destination unknown. Her crashed car, a black Saturn, was found on Route 112 in Woodgesville, New Hampshire. A local bus driver stopped and offered help, but Maura refused, claiming she had already called for roadside assistance. This was a lie. Cell service was non-existent in that area. By the time the first police officer arrived, she had vanished into the cold night, leaving behind more questions than answers. The search for Maura Murray began immediately but turned up nothing. Over the years, countless theories have emerged. Was she abducted by a predator who happened upon the crash scene? This is a popular theory, given the circumstances. But there was no sign of a struggle. Could she have wandered into the woods, disoriented from the crash, and succumbed to the harsh winter elements? Extensive searches of the area found no trace of her, which is unusual for exposure cases. Another compelling theory is that Maura planned to disappear voluntarily. Her actions beforehand the packed car, the cash, the fabricated family emergency all point to someone trying to start a new life. Some speculate she may have been pregnant and running away to handle the situation in secret, or perhaps meeting someone for a tandem disappearance. This would explain why she refused help from the bus driver. She didn't want authorities involved in her escape plan. Then there's the darker side. Could she have been the victim of a local criminal or even a law enforcement officer with something to hide? The area was remote, and the initial police response has been scrutinized over the years. Rumors of parties and hidden locations have circulated online, but none have led to a solid breakthrough. For a time, the case was linked to a potential serial predator. A former police officer named Lyko Kenny was killed in a shootout in 2007, and investigators found items in his possession that raised alarms. Even more disturbing were the revelations about Stephen Baldwin, an early volunteer in the search for Maura. Years later, Baldwin was convicted on unrelated charges, and his past involvement cast a chilling shadow over the case, leading many to wonder if the person they trusted was hiding a terrible secret. However, no direct evidence has ever linked Baldwin to Maura's disappearance. Armchair detectives have dissected every clue, every email, every witness statement. Her family has never given up hope, continuing to advocate for her and push for new leads. They've organized searches, raised awareness, and fought for answers in a case that has grown colder with each passing year. Maura Murray's story is a haunting tapestry of personal crisis, mystery, and a digital world desperate for answers. Was she a victim of a crime, an accident, or her own design? We may never know for sure. But as long as people keep asking questions, there's still a chance that one day the truth about what happened on that cold New Hampshire road will finally come to light. What do you think happened to Maura? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and please consider subscribing for more deep dives into compelling mysteries.